Alrighty.
All right,
Going live.
We're going live. I got so much cooking to do this week. Lots and lots of cooking. Mexican rice and beans, Amish stew.
That sounds really delicious.
Yeah, those are the 2 meals I'm making this week. And I did the research necessary to freeze dry the great amount of green beans we're going to have. I got to blanch all the little bastards.
Yeah, I was walking around the garden. I noticed that you were that you have harvested a wee bit, but there's still a bunch more to harvest.
What do you mean harvested a wee bit? I've harvested a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, I have to go out there and harvest more.
I've harvested a lot, man. It's like the stuff just keeps coming. But the green beans are ripe, so we gotta pluck the green beans.
The plums are now ripening up.
Yes, they're dropping to the ground. They have to be picked this week too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. They're just like, oh yeah, I wasn't ripe yesterday, but today I'm close to overripe, by the way.
That's exactly how it works. Exactly how it works when harvest season comes. Yeah, yesterday, not so much. Today, hey, you better get me or I'm going to start rotting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get all the
or get too big and you can just keep me for seeds.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what the squash is, man. Squashes and cucumbers do that trick to you. One day it's all good. Following day, you're like, yeah, didn't bother to look at them. Go back next day, it's like they're giant. It's like, what the hell did you do? It's really quite irritating, but yeah, I've got a ton to get done this next week.
Yeah, harvesting squash is not fun. That's very sharp.
Yes. You get kind of used to it, though.
As you.
Well,
your skin is a lot tougher than mine.
Only because
I think boys are just born with tougher skin.
Well, possibly. There is that possibility. Who knows?
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, whatever excuse works, Use whatever excuse you got. Yeah, there's a few tomatoes that were ripening up. I got peppers ripening up. Got tons of peppers ripening up, and everything's ripening up real fast.
Except for in the greenhouse. The tomatoes are taking their time in there.
Oh, no, I've harvested quite a few. That tomato plant is not a very good tomato plant. It's not what I thought it was when I planted it in there. I won't.
Yeah. I'm not sure I like those tomatoes very much. There's not much to them.
Not much to them. They're not overly tasty. It's supposed to be a heritage tomato, but it's not all that great. So I don't know. Just one of those things. Hey, Hemdian, nice to see you arrive. Just in time to hear us BS for another couple of minutes before we run into music. Yeah, I'm gonna rip that tomato plant out of the greenhouse because I need access to the ginger. The ginger's just about ready to harvest too.
Well, I wonder if that tomato plant. I wonder if the tomatoes taste better in their green form.
Piece of hell to me. I have no idea what kind it is. All it was labeled was it was a heritage tomato. Someone gave me seed for, and I grew it. And it's like, yeah, I don't like them. They're too small. Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll try harvesting some green ones and see if frying them up tastes really good because they have it seems like they would have more of a taste in the green in the green stage than they would in the red stage.
Yeah, they taste like green
tomatoes. Just
tomatoes.
because by the time they get to the red stage, they're kind of bland.
I don't care. I won't be growing them again. It was
fair enough.
Next year, I'll put some mortgage lifters in the greenhouse. And then I'll make sure I have it
awesome.
Super wired up in a greenhouse, the one that produces 1 pound tomatoes.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. 1 pound heavy duty beefsteak tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
I rather like those tomatoes this year. It's tasty tomato.
I really like the black tomatoes.
Yes, I'm gonna grow black prints. I thought I grew black prints this year, but I don't seem to have them anywhere.
There's little baby black tomatoes in the tomato bed.
No, it's not black prints.
Oh.
That's another one. Black Prince it grows up to a full-size tomato and it turns black. Actually a deep purple, not black, but
they look black.
Yes, because it's a deep purple. When you slice them open, you can see the deep purple in them. So
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, well the cherry ones. You're talking about the little cherry tomatoes that are black and then turn red on the bottom.
Do they turn red on the bottom?
Yes. If you're eating them when they're green if you're eating them when they're green on the bottom, they're not full of flavor yet.
I haven't tried them yet. I just noticed that they were black, and I thought they were baby black princes.
No, they're. I can't remember the name of them right now. I'm gonna grow those ones too because it is a tasty little cherry tomato.
Cool.
And but yeah, it it grows. They take forever to ripen, though. You know, they'll turn black, and then they just sit in the black with a green on the bottom, and until they start to change color on the bottom to where they start to turn orange and red, they have no flavor.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah. So no, next year I'm going to grow mortgage lifters, black prince, the yellow orange tomatoes, and a couple of varieties of cherry tomatoes. Have a focus, and I'm going to focus down on my peppers too to pick out my favorite peppers and grow more of those.
I really like those peppers that I can't remember the name of them.
The Anaheim chili. The Anaheim chili.
Yes, I like the Anaheims a lot.
Yeah, they're as tasty as a bell pepper. I had a couple extras, and I sliced one open and ate it last night and dipped in sauce.
So tasty, and they're really, really good for cooking with too.
Yep, they are. That's what they're made for. They're made for cooking. So
the yellow tomatoes. What? It doesn't seem like we have any yellow tomatoes this year.
Yes, we do.
We do? I just haven't seen them. Okay.
You haven't seen them. I've been processing them or eating them because I haven't gotten.
What are those ones called?
I have no idea anymore.
Just the yellow tomatoes.
They're the yellow tomatoes. Something stole my steaks, man. I had labels on everything. I swear to God, the crows come in and steal them all.
Probably the ravens too. I mean, they're all tricksters.
I've never seen a raven in the yard. I've seen them fly over the yard, but I've never seen a raven in the yard.
Fair enough.
I've seen crows in there. I actually caught a crow one day stealing a label. That's why I know the crows steal them. He was plucking it up out of the ground and he flew off. It's like, what the hell are you doing,
they are
bird?
shiny.
Yeah, well.
White reflects light very well, so it's shiny.
Find something to tie it to the thing so I don't lose the label.
Now, that'd be cool.
Find a way to keep the label there keep the animals from stealing my labels. All right, it is music time. Let's get some music and carry on to the show.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
Shall we get going?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress Plugins A to Z, not Z.
It's episode 610, and we have plugins for banning bots with a hammer while ordering up your post types, and some WordPress news, all coming up on WordPress Plugins from A to Z. WordPress. It's the most popular content management and website solution on the internet. And with over 80,000 plugins to choose from, how do you separate the junk from the gems? Join us for a weekly, unrehearsed conversation about the latest and greatest in WordPress plugins. This is WordPress Plugins from A to Z. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be out there on the globe today. Coming to you direct from the Brewery Overlook in Greater Southern Vancouver Island. I'm John Overall, and with me is the ever lovely
Ember Overall.
And we have the usual great show for you today. If you missed out on the pre-stream, it was a rather entertaining talk about harvesting stuff, so you might want to go check it out just for the fun of learning about all the crap you can harvest from your garden. Other than that, I really don't have all that much today, so, I will just...
Thank you for sharing, John. Now get down from that soapbox.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to have to change that one out. So.
I'm surprised you don't have it as a clip on your phone. You just don't point it at me. And
too much effort. Honestly, just too much effort. So welcome to episode 610, WordPress Plugins A-Z. We've got a couple of great in-depth plugins to cover for you, some recent news in both the WordPress world and the tech world in general, and some awesome WordPress tips. October is on its way here, which means Thanksgiving is right around the corner, at least for here in Canada. I think it's November in the US.
Yes, November in the US.
Okay. Also, yeah, I think John did just forget where he was. That's why he had to pause there and think.
Traveling up and down the island too much.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy about Thanksgiving just being around the corner, but we already have the Halloween stuff out. Usually, I mean, it should be like Thanksgiving, then Halloween, then whatever holidays after that, rather than Halloween. And then just kind of skip over the whole Thanksgiving thing? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that's the way it used to work.
That's kind of what I thought. Although, I have to admit, for Halloween, I'm not too upset because I totally go and search for house decorations and stuff in the Halloween section only. It's my favorite thing. Hopefully, I'll be able to find some really good Halloween plugins this year. Last year was kind of lame.
Yeah, well, it depends on whether anyone's introduced any new ones. I mean, we've been working with some that were created 8, 10, 12, 14 years ago.
This is true. A couple of reminders before we start the show today. Remember that the show starts at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, with the pre-stream starting about 12:15-ish Pacific time. Pre-stream is where we twiddle with the dials and knobs and just warm up our voices. Sometimes we have a great conversation. Sometimes we have an informative conversation, like today with the tomatoes. Our show notes for each episode can be found at wppluginsa2z.com. The new show notes will be up within 24 hours and they'll be on our front page for you. And don't forget, this is a value for value show and that you are a big part of its creation. You are our producers. We need you to help us to produce. So get on out there, hit some like buttons, share an episode or two, let people know that you helped to produce the longest running WordPress plugins podcast. That's it for reminders. And don't forget to stick around to the end of the show. Sometimes you'll get some actually life-altering advice in the tech world. Sometimes I ask really awesome questions. So, on to this week's featured artist.
Alrighty.
I believe Greg's Graphics?
No, Alamus, whatever that one is.
You never put the right name in.
I never changed the name.
What? Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah, sometimes I remember to change the name. Sometimes I don't. You're supposed to double check. Don't you know that? No, it's not Greg's Graphics. It's not sure who that is. It's
Angel Lamu.
Angel Lamu. There we go. Thank you. It's
That's
Angel Lamu.
That's A Lamu. So
yeah, A Lamu. Angel Lamu. So it's Angel's Graphics.
Well, Angel is pretty awesome. I like his work.
Mm-hmm.
And this week's piece, I think, is pretty awesome. When you look at the picture, the way our logo is placed in the hands kind of reminds me of a pet. Our logo is a pet. It's adorable.
Yes, it is rather adorable. It's had all kinds of fun with that logo ever since it was created by one of our listeners like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's an awesome logo. I really like it.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there who feels inspired by this really cute piece right here, feel free to go and send in some art to us at wppluginsa.com/artwork. You can also check out the art vault yourself, which may hopefully inspire you to send in more art, because right now we're still digging into our art vaults and pulling up older stuff. We would love to have some new stuff though.
Yeah, I may
the Buddha
have to
the Buddha looks like his head is dropped into his lap, except he has another head.
Pretty much. It is a good photo of a Buddha, though.
It is.
All right, well, let's wander off.
Please, can everybody be quiet? Please be quiet. Shut up! And now the news with Amber.
All right, so since we don't really have a WordPress vulnerability report from iThemes, I went to a place called PatchStack, which it's a well-known place. It's where a lot of places get their information, but I've never liked the way they set up their information, so I didn't go there regularly. iThemes still has not put out a new report since August 31st. Not sure what's going on.
Maybe they're just not going to do it anymore.
Maybe. Well, iThemes has some information. You scroll down there, you can see what the issue is. They tell you a bit about what the issue is, like let's go with iFolders, cross-scripting, and vulnerability. So you can click on them to get more information, and it tells you how long ago it was, tells you what's going on, whether it's a plugin or a theme. So it's a good list to go ahead and take a look through.
Yeah, it's not as nice and convenient as the vulnerability report was, but
it takes a little getting used to just to fully comprehend it, but it does give you the same kind of information.
Yeah, you can sort them by severity.
Oh dear. Hemdian said no vulnerability report, then everything must be safe.
Yeah.
If only.
If only that was true.
So something that I found interesting, this is the next thing we have. PatchStack reports 404 vulnerabilities affecting 1.6 million sites to WordPress.org plugins team. Now, usually PatchStack does not go directly to WordPress, except as a last resort when dealing with challenging case. However, in many cases this time around, there was zero contact information for the vendors, or there was no response to communication attempts. The issue has been dubbed Zombie Plugins Pandemic.
Well, that was bound to happen.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, I had a tough time finding a plugin this week because I'd used up most of all my list that I'd gathered up in the spring. And the big problem was that I was finding a lot of old plugins, abandoned plugins, and I wasn't going to go for anything that hadn't been updated in the last year or two at the worst. But I was running into some old stuff. And I remember a lot of the plugins WordPress uses and have been used, they were created back in the early Magic days when most of the developers were still in college and they needed experience and they'd create these fun things. That's where we got all the fun games and all the fun Halloween stuff and everything else. There's nobody creating that stuff anymore. You know, because they're no longer wanting to just put stuff out there for the fun of putting it out there. So it was bound to happen that they'd get it. You know, these guys in college, they get a job with the big boys and they go off and make their 6 figures a year doing their coding. It's like, yeah, screw that plugin. It's not important anymore. So unless somebody picks up the ball and runs with it, it's gone. Gone forever.
But at the same time, it's still floating around out there, completely abandoned. Completely
abandoned, and people are still using it. I've had to start cleaning up very old websites of stuff in the last year. I've had to start cleaning up websites of old plugins that have been abandoned. You know, the PHP 8 mandates have caused a lot of plugins to be cleaned up from websites.
Yeah, they really have.
Yeah, that's it. If nothing else, that's one good thing to come from it.
This is true. Also, plugins that you didn't even that you may not even realize have been abandoned are now showing up as haven't been abandoned.
Yeah, well, that's the whole plan. That's the whole problem. And unfortunately, I'm not that great at code writing. I can still write some code occasionally. If I could rewrite code really well, God, you could make some money if you wanted to just grab these abandoned plugins, fork them, and resubmit them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's for someone who has the drive and wants to turn a business and doesn't need it as their primary income right now, because it'll take a year or two to make the money. But still, you could start making money on them.
MDN asked, what plugin are you using for the recipe?
Oh, I can't remember the plugin name right now. It's the best. It's I use the premium version of it. I can tell you in a moment, though. I'll look it up. You keep wandering through the news.
All right. So next thing we have here is GoDaddy retires Media Temple brand. So after 24 years of being in the hosting industry, they are closing the doors to Media Temple brand. All of the clients have been fully migrated over to the GoDaddy servers. The migration started in February 2023, and now that has been completed, Media Temple will close the doors. GoDaddy has assured the MT clients that they will be keeping their current products and pricing for equivalent products with access to more tools. So I thought this might be something good for people to know, because apparently Media Temple was a huge hosting company for a long time.
Yeah, I vaguely remember something about them.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's all I can say about Media Temple. It's like I saw it and I'm thinking, who's Media Temple? And then I read the article and I went, yeah, I sort of recall them, but because I started my own servers, I just sort of let it go by the wayside because it was no longer important.
All right, well, for anybody who likes to keep up on this, I thought it might be interesting to bring to the table.
Yep.
Next, we have Gutenberg 16.6 introduces block hooks, improvement to toolbars, and nested blocks. So what was initially called auto blocks are now being called block hooks. This has been done because the auto blocks were actually a hook in block form. So the description will make more sense to those who know what a hook is. These blocks are designed to be a hook. The changes made to the toolbars on nested blocks means that the toolbar will now stay attached to the parent block. Before, the toolbar would move around. That sounds really frustrating. There is more about the changes, and you can follow the link in our show notes to learn more. But I thought that it was entertaining that they are changing the auto blocks into block hooks.
Well, every once in a while they make a change. They make a change that makes sense.
Well, I find it interesting that the names seem to receive the most changes in Gutenberg.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there at the beginning of WordPress, though, so I don't know if they did the same thing in WordPress.
No, they actually intelligently name shit from the beginning in WordPress. But that was before political correctness came into effect. Once upon a time, we used to be able to use master and slave for primary and secondary hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
So they used names that made sense, but a lot of those names were not politically correct, so they had to get rid of them.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. The difference is between, policing speech and allowing something to be logical.
Well, block hooks are the new name for the auto blocks.
Yep.
Next, we have Performant Translations plugin is now available on WordPress.org. So earlier this year, an in-depth performance analysis revealed that translations can impact server response time. WordPress contributors proposed half a dozen technical solutions to improve this, and Performant Translations is the feature project that came about and put all these suggestions into work. So the feature project by the core performance team is now available as a plugin on WordPress.org. Users who are using this can report new issues on the support forum to help them make it better. What I gather is that the goal of this new plugin is to reduce the amount of time, reduce the impact of server response times, but still have the ability to translate.
Yep.
Next. Oh, and then I have my funky random my funky random one for the end of the news. So this is target of Europe's space junk cleanup mission hit by more space junk. I've been finding this entertaining for the last few years. I mean, for a while there, the US was thinking about creating a giant Nerf ball and sending it up into space, but they couldn't figure out how they would get it back down or how they would tether it to keep it in the US that they wouldn't have it floating all over the place. So, yeah, it's been an issue trying to figure out how to clean up the space junk. What happened here, and they go through it in the article, is they were studying one of the bits of space junk, trying to figure out like velocity, size, all that stuff, and it got smacked into by another piece of space junk.
Mm-hmm.
It's becoming a serious problem up there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have so much crap in our orbit right now. It's insane. I'm surprised we can still manage to launch a rocket into space.
I think that the rocket probably just ends up with a lot of dings and bruises.
Yeah, it better be going as fast as all the other stuff out there.
So, for those who are not aware, there is so much space debris up orbiting our planet. I mean, think about it. We've sent up satellites, and we have these machines that go up and they dump half of their engine or that help get them into outer space, and that's just floating around. And we have all kinds of stuff in our orbit. So there's a lot of junk up there. And it's been causing more and more issues because what happens is it crashes into each other, and that creates tinier pieces which orbit even faster, which cause even more destruction when the tinier pieces crash into something and create more tiny pieces. It's an ongoing issue. Eventually, if we just leave it alone, it'll probably just become dust.
Maybe. Some of it will eventually fall back to Earth, but problem is we just keep launching more and more into space. I mean, think about how many satellites Elon's got up there right now. Got a string of pearls circling the Earth.
If you're as interested in this kind of stuff as I am, this article goes into the information on what they're planning on doing with it. Right now, Europe has the best idea, which is essentially to have one of those, those claw games where you try to grab the stuffies?
Yeah.
They basically want to launch those up and have the claws grab the space junk and bring it back down.
And the space junk come in there and shear off the little wire for the claws, so we'll have claws out there floating around too.
Well, that's their idea right now. They're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, us humans are full of great ideas that turn out to be not so good. We do it all the time. I'm regularly party to that. Have great ideas. I start doing it, saying, that wasn't such a good idea. So.
Yep.
It's the problem with it. All right. Well, enough of that fun stuff. It is time for us to wander off into some plugins. Alrighty. First one I've got out the gate for you here is called Banhammer. Monitor your site traffic, block bad bots and users from your site. It's not a bad plugin on the whole. I thought, well, I have a website in particular right now that for some reason everyone seems to hate it. And I've constantly putting plugins on there to slow down and ban the morons that are trying to either hack into it or create problems or the bots or whatever. It's not a very big site, but it's just really highly trafficked for some reason. At any rate, I saw this one and I went, you know what? We'll give this one a shot and see how it works. It's not that bad. The only problem I had with it, it sets up really easy, starts to monitor stuff. There's no automation in it. You have to manually pop in there from time to time, and you have to look into the armory, as they call it, and go in and manually block or ban or warn the users. Now, I don't know why you'd want to warn them. To me, it's like just block and ban them, period. There's no need to warn them. If they're being a pain in the ass, you don't want them, period. So other than that, it's kind of useful, but you do have to monitor it. It's perfect for a smaller site that wants to monitor some traffic. Maybe they've got some minor issues with users or whatever their problem is, and they just want to temporarily ban them. This is a nice way to temporarily ban and unban. On the whole, not a bad plugin. They do have some premium versions of it and of different plugins that for security. I didn't check out their other ones for security wise. The setup is really straightforward and easy enough. This is what it looks like to go into the place and then start banning stuff. You have to manually do all the banning. Tells you where they're coming from, what they're doing, and you can block or ban them or whatever you want to do. But on the whole, not a bad plugin. Worthwhile. Does kind of work. I give this one a 4-dragon rating. Go check it out. It's Banhammer. Monitors site traffic, block bad users, and bots.
All right. So we have some WordPress tips here. Oh, I have a major echo. That sounds so weird. Oh, it stopped. Okay, good. We would love to hear some tidbits from some of our producers out there. What did you figure out by breaking something? Or what did you need to learn in order to help someone? Send these tidbits into me at amber@wppro.ca, and I'll get them up in here, and we can stop listening to my tips and start listening to some really awesome tips from our producers out there.
Yeah, that would be useful.
It would. I don't have enough experience to give like the best tips. I've only got just a little bit compared to some of our producers out there, man. I bet they have like the gold in tips and tricks.
Most likely. Come on, share your gold, folks. Share your gold.
So for making sites, and also it doesn't have to be just for making sites or beginner's tips. It can be for anything. You think of a tip, send it in. I'll get it up here and create your own category. Recently, I was working on a client site, and I made the mistake of giving the wrong information on how to do something because I didn't look closely enough at the plugins on their site before answering the question. Always have a look through the plugins on a site to see what those plugins do before answering a question or trying to solve an issue. Whether the site is yours or another's, you will not remember all the plugins that are there all the time, especially if you work on more than one site. We always think we will remember which plugins are on which site, but really, we don't. We don't remember at all.
Don't even remember the ones on the ones we don't even remember the plugins on the sites we access the most.
No, not at all, because you're doing too much. Like if you work on 2 sites, you might remember a couple plugins on one of the sites, but you're never going to be sure which site that plugin is actually on. And for people who work on like 20, 50 sites, you're not going to remember, not in the slightest. So before to read through the plugins on sites before you answer questions and before you try to solve any issues.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing worse than answering a question only to discover later that's the plugin causing it that you should have caught to begin with.
Yep.
Yeah, always good.
Some beginner.
Go ahead. So it's always good to review the site before you do anything.
Yeah, even if you think you know the site really well, you don't. So beginner's tips. There are a bunch of plugins that don't exactly have an explanatory name on what they do, like NextMind by Ali. This is a plugin for AI SEO optimization, but the name itself does not tell you this. So having a cheat sheet for yourself for the most used plugins throughout the various sites that you work on, or on your single site, that has these kind of names where you can't really tell what the plugin is for or what it does just from the name, that can be very useful. Another cheat sheet that is useful is a cheat sheet of the best plugins you've found for sites in general. A good example for me is Cube Color New Plugin. I always add this to sites I'm working on because it makes it a lot easier to find the plugins I need. It's easily removed, and it does not cause any issues because it's not there to do anything to the site so much as it's there to organize the plugins when you hit the Add New button. So there are a bunch of different plugins that could be very useful, and you could throw them onto a site you're working on, remove them as you go, or a plugin that is useful that would work for multiple sites that you work on. Cheat sheets are useful and great, and they are worth the time you will spend on them. The idea that you don't have enough time to create them is kind of silly because with the time you spend on these cheat sheets, you will save days worth of time down the road.
Yep. Very useful. I used to have that. Back in the beginning, I used to have a top 10 plugins, most recommended plugins. I used to have all those things. In fact, the articles can probably be still found at johnoverall.com.
Likely.
All that stuff. But that saved me tons of time as I was building out websites. I knew exactly what plugins to throw in. I also had a folder I kept on my, in my development folder for websites. I had a folder with a copy of all the plugins that were most common when starting a new website. I just upload them all and boom, boom, boom. And then if they needed updated, they just updated. So yeah,
cool.
There was a lot that I used to do for it, but I sort of let that slide in the world that I'm in now.
Well, now it's time for my plugin.
All right.
Post Types Order by NSP Code.
You didn't hear that at all, did you?
Hear what?
The little jingle in front of you. You talked right over it.
No, I didn't hear. I listened for a second, didn't hear anything, and figured you weren't playing it.
Oh no, I played it, and you talked right over it. It was really kind of fun.
Oh.
You can start again now.
Start talking, or?
Yeah, start talking again.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were saying you wanted to start the jingle again.
No, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Don't worry, folks. I'll edit it out in post.
Yeah, all right. So post types order by NSP code. This is a plugin that we've been using for a bit, and I realized although we use it and recommend it, we haven't really done too much of a review on it. There's like a basic review a while back, but figured I'd do a more in-depth review. Once you've downloaded and activated this plugin, you go to Posts, then Reorder. Here you will see every single post you have, and you can drag and drop them into any order you like. Great thing is that when you reorder any of these posts, no other ordering of posts will be affected, and it will take effect immediately after hitting Update at the bottom of the page. This is really great if you have any posts you want to arrange in a particular way, though be aware it does seem to override organization in your page builder at least some of the time. I'm not sure if it's all the time because I've only tested out in Elementor, and it did definitely override any kind of organization that you can do with Elementor. I had an experience where I hadn't realized that the client had this on their site. I told him how to reorder some posts through Elementor. Elementor could not reorder the posts. And so the client was a little frustrated. I was just confused until I noticed that they had this plugin and was able to point them in that direction. And it was very easy. Once I told them where to go, they could just drag and drop, put it in any order they wanted. Worked out great. And but yeah, the plugin is really good, but it does not allow for the actual organization to happen through something like Elementor. You can try to use it and nothing happens. Yep.
Well, good to know.
The plugin is kept up to date fairly well, and I have not had any real problems with this. It seems to play nice with others. The fact that it tends to override page builder reordering capability shouldn't be too much of an issue since you're already able to reorder the post with the plugin itself, and it doesn't affect any ordering of other things. It's just the posts. As it stands now, the plugin is a freebie, and they are doing a great job making sure it stays that way. So I definitely recommend... if you deactivate the plugin, the posts will go back to whichever order was there beforehand. You can get the order back by reactivating it, though if you delete the plugin, you will have to go through all the work of getting the posts into the order you want all over again. So I definitely recommend that you check this one out. It works really well. I rate it at 5 dragons.
Very cool. Yeah, it's useful. I've used it once or twice on websites when they needed to bring posts to the top for their editing. It's usually very useful if you got a few posts that you edit regularly, and sometimes you have a post you edit once quite regularly, you change content on it, and it's nice to have it at the top instead of having to search for it every time.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I'll have to do a review on its counterpart, the page reorder.
Cool.
It's time to donate to WP Plugins A-Z.
All right, so earn yourself a producership credit. We have 3 levels of producers that help to keep the show's lighters stocked to bursting. We have our freelance producers, backroom producers, and warroom producers. There are special perks for backroom and warroom producers that you can learn about on our site, WPPluginsA-Z.com. Click on Time, Treasure, or Talent donations in our main menu to learn all the nitty-gritty details on how you can add your 2 cents. If you can also go to our show notes, we have a basic explanation of what a freelance, backroom, and warroom producer are. You can also join in and be part of your own production, support the show at the same time. There are loads of ways you can use us as your tool to get out there, like getting an interview, leaving a review for a plugin, or donating your own plugin review or your own plugin license. It doesn't just help you out, it also helps us out. You're our producers. It gets our name out there, and it gets your name out there in turn. It helps us both. You can check out all the different ways to do the supporting here in our show notes. We do have a question today.
Excellent.
From a producer. Hey guys, I reserved my domain and see there are many options, .com, .ca, or whatever country, .org, and so on. Is there a rule of thumb of how many to buy? Should I buy all the relevant ones? Will that truly increase my presence? And last but not least, how will it affect my SEO, positively or negatively? Thanks, Anna.
All right. Well, rule of thumb, however many you can afford, buy them. That's the rule of thumb. The way you want to buy them is you want to buy .com if you can get it. If not, you want to buy your country for whatever it is, if it's .ca for Canada, and then you'll want to buy .org or .biz if it's a business. But the rule of thumb is to buy as many as you can afford per year. The pricing has gone up on domains in the last few years by a fair chunk. What used to be $6 and $7 is now anywhere from $9 to $30 per domain, depending on what extension it has on it. Actually, some of them are even more than that.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Does it increase? Well, there's some of the really specialized ones. Like you used to not be able to get the .store, I can't remember them. It's like they've pretty much taken everything and made it into extension now.
Makes sense.
As a
They're
domain,
kind of running out of words.
Yeah, well, there's only so many words, and you can only have one domain per extension, or one name per extension. So they've tried to make it so other people can get these different ones they couldn't get before. But of course, the ones that had those other ones, they snapped them all up. It's like, for instance, johnoverall.com. I own the .biz, .net, .org. I got them all. Now, does it increase your presence? Yes and no. Because yes, in that if people forget and they type .org or they type whatever, that helps. I don't know that it actually helps increase your presence on the internet. As far as SEO, they say it positively can affect your internet if you have them properly redirected with proper canonical URLs attached to it. It can impact it. It can be negative if it's negative things. I don't know. I use the domains, all the multiple domains I have, in multiple ways is basically how I use them. I bought them mainly so no one else could own them, is the whole reason I bought them, and then pay for them every year. So the idea, you really only need one domain unless you're in a highly competitive field and you happen to be lucky enough to grab all the domains. That can keep your competitors away from the primary name. Like if, for instance, you were lucky enough to get, trying to think of some general term. Let's start with hosting. If you were lucky enough to get something in hosting, .com, you'd want .com, you want .org, .biz, you'd want them all, because you'd want to prevent any competitor from buying up the ones in alternate names and setting up a competitive site and maybe getting tagged by somebody typoing something. So it's a matter of, how much money you want to spend for your domains every year and whether you truly need it. Is it that competitive of an industry you're in that you want multiple domains in it? So anyway, that's my take on it, and all about the domains that I have. I have shit ton. I think I currently only have 120 domains. At one point in time, I think I owned 250.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, it can get expensive year after year if you're not using them, though. I started letting them expire a few years ago because it's like, I'm never going to use this. I'm never going to use this. And I let somebody else have a chance at it. Some people sit on them forever. Now, I have sold a few domains and made a few bucks off domains that I bought for a purpose, and then I never got around to using it. And somebody comes along and says, hey, you want to sell that domain? Sure. Why not? I'll take $3,000 for it.
Cool.
I think the top one I've ever sold was, I sold one for $6,000 once.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and it's actually a cool website now. It's adsatwork.com. And I used it. I used it for an ad site too, when I ran an ad site back in the day when it was really popular. But they use it now to promote selling advertising on the internet. So, but yeah, they bought that from me about 5 years ago or so. I still own the .ca version of it though.
Well, maybe they'll come back at you.
No, they're an American company. They can't have the .ca version.
Oh, okay.
A lot of your country names, you have to prove you're a citizen of that country or a corporation in that country to get that country domain.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yep, that keeps the philanders out of the way, man. Alrighty.
All right. So, I don't think we have any meetups happening anytime soon.
Did the meetup Victoria die out? I kind of figured it would.
Well, let's go check it out real quick.
Let's see. What we got? It's hard to do, man. It's very hard to do. I ran the WordPress meetup for Victoria for years. That's the WordPress one. I ran the one for Victoria for years. Yeah, their last one was in July 6th.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything coming up anytime soon, but maybe they'll start up again.
Yeah. Takes a lot of work to run a meetup.
Yeah, it does.
And I know. I've been there, done that. And then, of course, to give talks. And, well, I used to give talks at mine. And I used to arrange speakers for mine. You know, made mine worthwhile. He was trying to do an online version. So, at any rate.
And we've now officially gotten through all of the WordCamps that were planned around the world for the month. So I'll have to go back in and check those out again. But if anybody is interested, in the show notes here, we have central.wordcamp.org where you can go and check things out to see what's happening around the world for WordCamps. If anybody is interested in reaching out to us, we have a brick and mortar address where you can send in art or notes or treasure. And we also have our virtual addresses too. You can find those here in our show notes. Today's plugins we covered were...
I covered up the Ban Hammer, monitor site traffic, block bad users and bots by Jeff Starr. You know, ban or warn any WordPress user or IP address, restore access to any banned targets, monitor site traffic in the Armory, and more. Go check it out. I gave it a 4 dragon rating.
And I covered post order types by NSP Code. With auto start option on, you don't need to worry about any code changes. Plugin will apply customized post order on the fly. You can reorder. The reorder interface appears for every custom post type in a non-hierarchical way. And it's very easy to use with drag and drop for organization. I rated this at 5 dragons.
Very cool.
It's question and answer time with John and Amber.
All right, so if anybody out there has any questions they'd like to have asked here on the show, send them in to me at amber@wppro.ca and we'll see if we can stump my dad. First question for you. What cheat sheets have you created over the years for plugins? You mentioned one of them earlier, but were there any others?
Oh, yeah, well, top 10 list, primary plugins, best plugins for... I've created cheat sheets for pretty much everything in plugins. I had a lot. I still probably got those lists in some of my stored folders and articles I've written on johnoverall.com. There'll be tons of information there. You know, I did a lot when I was coming up into this. I documented a lot of stuff, mainly for myself for future if I wanted to refer back to it. I just didn't anticipate the way WordPress changed and evolved. I wasn't anticipated to speed up to the speed of light. You know, because for a long, long time, technology evolved at a steady pace. You could absorb it, but about 5-7 years ago, it suddenly switched into high gear, and it started evolving. It went from having updates. WordPress updates were initially once, twice a year. It went from that to 3 times a year. And then for a while there, they made an effort to update it 5 times a year. Fortunately, they backed it down to 3 times a year now.
I appreciate
3,
that.
maybe 4 times a year. About every quarter, they put out an update, give or take. But yeah, and it's like dealing with the updates and all the other software we've got. You know, for a long time, Windows got updated, once every couple of months. Now it's like every other week. It's like my browser. I did updates on my browser like 3 days ago, and now it's already screaming at me, update. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, me too.
So
I swear, the browser, I swear you have to update it every week now.
Not every week, every 3 days. So I give up, man. It's like, I'm just going to ignore you until I finally get around to dealing with it. Because I don't trust you. That's the biggest thing. I don't trust you in your updates because I've updated you and stuff breaks. So...
yeah, that is a real hassle.
That's the big hassle is I can no longer trust their updates because so many things break when they rush out these updates. I used to be able to trust the updates because they tested them before they released them. That's why it took so long to release the updates, because they tested them to make sure they didn't break everything. Now they don't test them. They go, oh, we fixed it. Oops. Seems Joe over at the in the lower corner of the last office there dropped a colon, and oops. So okay, well that's it. Like I said, I've created tons of them. You can find a lot of it. Just go. I don't know how you would search for them in johnoverall.com, but they're there. And then of course in the documents you have access to, I have them in there somewhere.
So how much time would you say you saved in the long run by taking the time to create the cheat sheets for plugins, and how much help have they been overall?
Well, when I was using them, they saved tons of time in the future. You know, versus like, okay, I built a website. It's like after a couple of websites, I know what plugins are going to go in. Okay, well, I monitor that, keep it. Oh, I got a new website. Oh shit, what plugins? Oh yeah, I've got my list here. Throw them all over. Now I just save myself because I can upload them instead of going to WordPress. Choose the plugin, install the plugin, wait for it to install. That's a minimum of a 2 to 3 minute job. At the very minimum, 2 to 3 minutes. Say you got to do 10 of them. What is that? That's 20, 30 minutes. So if you have them all on a folder on your computer ready to FTP up, you FTP it up. It takes 5 minutes maybe to FTP it up. And then you just go through and go activate, activate, activate. Now you've done this job in 10 to 15 minutes. How much time did you save? You saved anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 or 15 minutes to 20 minutes of time. And that adds up over time.
Yeah, it does. I'd say that you would be saving yourself days and weeks worth of time in the long run.
Yeah. It's like preparing it out. It's like getting ready right now. I'm getting ready right now for a ton of server work that I have to do in the next 6 months, and I've started writing out my plan on how to do it. And once I have the plan written out, yeah, I'll spend an hour or two on the plan, but when it goes to do it, I'll have it all mapped out, and I can just look at my plan and go, yeah, okay, I got to do that, 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 and I just get it all done, and I don't have to sit there and think through each step as I'm doing it with the possibility of breaking something along the way. So you plan it all out. It makes it a whole lot easier if you can plan it all out. I mean, I'm all for do things on the fly. I have no problem doing that, but I realize it eats up more time than I can afford. So yeah.
All right. Well, that is the end of my questions.
Okay.
I'll get the rest of them after the closing credits.
That's the end of the questions, folks. For those of you listening on the download, you want to hear all the really cool, fun questions and the true entertainment? Come check us out over on the YouTubes and just scroll to the end of the show, find the extra credits, and boom, listen to the rest of the show. Anyway, I'm going to let our girl take us on out of here.
Reminders for the show. All show notes can be found at wppluginsa-z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A-Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by developers because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsaz.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show at Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and in the iTunes Store. You can also leave us a review on our Facebook page using wppluginsaz.com/Facebook. You can also watch the show live on YouTube, check out the screencasts and training videos, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. Follow the show on Twitter at WPPluginsA-Z. John can also be reached at his website, johnoverall.com, or email him directly, john@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the show. This show is copyright by johnoverall.com. So until next time, have yourselves a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be out there on the globe today.
Alrighty then. Like Indian's comments there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty useful. Nice, impressive. Built himself a big local writing group. Yeah, one of the problems is the more people you get involved in it, the more you actually have to create a code of conduct and other policy documents, because humans were really strange. Once we get in a group more than 5 or 6, we stop playing well.
Yeah, it's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just go, no, I don't want to play well with you. Yeah, I'm going to create problems because I don't want to play well with this person, so I'm going to create issues just because I can do that. Humans,
Every group has their group of drama llamas.
yes, they do. And it usually starts when you get about 6 or 7 members. That's when it usually starts. And then it gets worse the bigger the group gets. All right.
My last couple of questions for you.
Uh-huh.
What is the least helpful thing you have done in an attempt to help your future self save time?
Thinking I created useful folder names and file names, and then going back later and going, why didn't I name it this? Or it's the hardest thing is creating a file structure for your future self, because if you do this long enough, you will collect. I've got 20 years of data now collected that I access regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And probably about 12 years ago, I settled on a file structure which actually started to work very well. And it's 80 to 90% of the time I go back and look for something in that file structure, I can find it. But the biggest thing is getting a file structure that you will remember. And remember where you put files. And remember, the other thing, the least helpful thing was not creating enough folders for all the files. For a long time, I used to dump them all into one folder. And then I didn't appropriately name the bloody files to be useful. So what I started doing was I started creating proper folder names and putting specific files into those folder names, which made it a whole lot easier for my future self. So yeah, that's the least useful thing I ever did, was not creating a proper file structure for retrieving data 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, that is a hard one.
I'm
finally understanding how to name my folders so I don't get lost in my own file structures.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, is it's really easy. And of course, the longer you do it, the more data you accumulate.
Mm-hmm.
And as you accumulate more and more data, it makes it harder and harder to find it. Especially like I've looked back, I've had hundreds of clients over the years, and I eventually started sorting them by year. For the ones I worked on by year, and even if it was the same client, I would give all their new files a new year, so that I had a vague notion of how old the files were and whether they were relevant anymore.
That makes sense.
So it's just the most useful thing you can do is a file structure, and it's the least useful thing you can do if you don't think out how far down the road you're going to need this. And if you're just starting out, well, if you're enjoying this, your career, you might be here for 5, 10, 20 years. I've been in this now for 24 years. 1999 was when I started this. That was when my first server came online, was 1999. So I've got data going all the way, actually I got it going all the way back to 96, but the real data didn't start till 99. So go ahead.
This last one is a little odd. It's, what would you recommend people try, or what would you recommend people at least try out in an attempt to help their future selves save a little time, even though you didn't find it help you much? And why would you suggest people at least try it out?
I don't fully understand the question.
Like I said, it's a little odd. We all try things that it might help to save us time in the future, but we find it doesn't really help for us, but it could be helpful for other people. Can you think of anything like that you would tell people to at least give it a go?
Well, it pertains to organization. The biggest thing is you got to find something to organize and try different tools for organizing, until you find one that works with you. Currently, I still use Basecamp. I've been using Basecamp now for about 6 or 7 years. And I don't use it as much as I used to, but I've had a couple of other ones that were similar to Basecamp, and I used them. And then, of course, I chose companies that were piss poor in how the program worked. It seemed to work at first, but then the more data that went into it, the worse it became.
Oh no.
And then, of course, what happened was the companies folded, sold to somebody, changed their format, whatever. It's like my favorite one that I just recently finally did away with earlier this year is EverHour. I used it for time tracking. And they had some really fantastic, useful tools in that you can put an add-on into your browser, and when you were working on a client site, you click a button at the top of your browser, it would start tracking your time immediately. They had it so it connected to your Basecamp project, so the time would get tracked in Basecamp for you. And it was really fantastic. It was really good for billing my time out and monitoring where my time was going. Then they decided to completely revamp their plugin or their program, and changed it all. And instead of just moving the one forward that I was using, they created a whole new program and eventually abandoned the old one. And it's like, okay, yeah, I finally went, I don't want to learn your new one. I looked at it and it's like, no, I'll just forget it. You don't get my money anymore. So it's like you got to try different tools for organization. Your biggest thing you'll need is organization, because organization is the biggest place that I ever fell down over the years was keeping my organization, and keeping your organization is tough. So that's the biggest thing you got to do is work on organization and just try different tools until you find the tools that work for you. And then hopefully you find a company that's going to stick. Basecamp, I found, well, they've stuck quite well. They've made advances in it. They've removed a couple of useful tools, changed some of the tools in it, and brought back a useful tool. But, they sort of listen, but they've managed to keep going forward and keep it useful.
And also, just because you're on the internet doesn't mean that organization needs to be on the internet.
No.
I actually find that using paper works a lot better for me.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of paper still. I have, what do I have? I have 5, 10 notepads, and each notepad is labeled
like 50.
with not 50.
It sure seems like it. Just saying.
No, I can count them. There's only like maybe 10, maybe 15. But there's not just for work notes. I have my personal notes and other things in there too. But it's just, you label the top of the notepad with what that project is. When you're done, tear that page off. If you need that page, file it somewhere. If you don't need the page, scrap it. So, and then go through and rewrite it. But yeah, paper is still king. I think it's beyond and above all. The internet is useful. The best thing I found about the internet tools is everything that's on the internet I also have on paper. The useful thing about the internet is if I have to change computers, I can log into those internet spots to grab information I might have forgotten to bring along. So that's the most useful part about having your stuff online, is that it can be accessed in multiple places.
Yeah. All right, so organization is what you recommend. I think that's a really good recommendation, honestly.
Yeah, that's the best thing I can suggest. So we got some comments from Hemdian. You take them.
Well, we were talking about where he used to go. He said that the biggest pain was finding free venues. We didn't have fees. We used the coffee shop in Chapters downtown, but that closed. The Bent Mast pub was good. Rule was everyone had to buy something.
Yeah.
I used to call it the McChapters downtown because it was right next to the McDonald's. But the Bent Mast is pretty awesome. They always got some really good food there.
Yeah, the Bent Mast is pretty good. Didn't hold that many people though.
No, but anyone who hasn't been there, you need to go there. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good place. I haven't been there in years now. Been a long time since I've been there. Yeah, I used to, because of what I did, I used to rent venues and then take donations from people who attended the events. I think of all the years I did it and the donations I collected, I think maybe 5 or 6 times I actually got enough donations to pay for the venue. It was a losing proposition for me, but actually it wasn't, because I also got clients out of it. So it was never a complete losing proposition. No.
Cool.
So yeah. But that's always the tough part about running an organization. Where do you meet? You can't have them all meet at your house. Unless you happen to
No,
own a mansion.
unfortunately.
Unless you happen to own a mansion, where you can cordon off a large chunk of your real estate somewhere and force people to go there. All right. Well, I think that pretty much covers it. You got anything else?
Oh, cool. The Bent Mess has meeting rooms upstairs.
Yeah, they do, but I've been in that meeting room a couple of times. They have rooms? I don't really know of one that it ever had. I've been in the one meeting room upstairs. I think we maxed out at about 20 people.
Oh, that's cool. Hemdian also said he used to use paper a lot, but he's finding MS OneNote is replacing that more and more. He puts the data file in OneDrive so he can access it anywhere on any device.
Well, that can be useful.
Yeah.
That can definitely be useful to do it that way. So, organization, big key, folks. All right, well, let's music and take us on out of here. Oops, we need that one.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
Alrighty, folks, that's all we've got for you. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Oh my god, that is amazing!
Oh no. Obviously, we just lost the satellite feed.